You wake up, not slowly, not gradually, not the way you normally surface from sleep like a swimmer breaking through water. This is different. This is immediate. One moment you're dreaming about something you can't quite remember, and the next your eyes are open, staring into the darkness of your hab-block sleeping compartment, and you're listening. It's 400 hours. 3 hours before your shift begins in the bioprocessing facilities on Agri-World Thesha Tertius. 3 hours before you're supposed to be awake. But here you are, sitting upright on your sleeping mat, the thin thermal blanket pulled around your waist, and you're listening to something you can't quite hear. The compartment is 3 by 4 meters. You know every centimeter of it. The way the ventilation system hums, that steady, rhythmic pulse that's been the soundtrack to your sleep for the past 8 years. The way the hab walls creak as the temperature differential causes the plasteel to contract in the pre-dawn cold. The faint vibration of the Resic system 2 floors down, processing the previous day's organic waste into tomorrow's nutrient paste. These are familiar sounds, comforting in their monotony. But underneath them, threaded through them like a foreign language hidden in static, there's something else. It's not a sound, not exactly. You don't hear it with your ears, though your ears are involved somehow. It's deeper than that. It resonates in your teeth, makes them ache at the root. It vibrates in your bones, as if your skeleton has become a tuning fork struck by something vast and distant. You feel it in the fluid of your inner ear, that delicate mechanism that tells you which way is up, which way is down, except now it's telling you something else entirely. Something impossible. It's saying your name, not the name on your work identification chip. Not Marcus Valen, Bioprocessor 3rd Class, Citizen Grade 4, Hab Block Theta 7. No, it's saying a different name. A name you don't have words for. A name that describes what you are rather than who you are. The chemical composition of your body, the electrical patterns of your neural firing, the specific arrangement of proteins and consciousness that makes you, you. And somehow, impossibly, you understand it. Your hands are shaking. You notice this in a distant, clinical way, as if you're observing someone else's hands trembling in the darkness. Your breathing has become shallow, rapid. Your heart is hammering against your ribs like it's trying to escape the cage of your chest. These are fear responses. You catalog them automatically, the way you were taught in the civic defense drills everyone attends but nobody takes seriously. Elevated heart rate, hyperventilation, fight or flight activation. But you're not fighting. And you're not fleeing. You're just sitting here, listening to something that shouldn't exist, feeling a growing certainty that makes your stomach clench with nausea. This is real. This isn't a dream bleeding into wakefulness. This isn't a malfunction of your HAB's atmosphere processors causing hallucinogenic gases to leak into your compartment. This isn't the early stages of some neurological disorder, some tumor pressing against the parts of your brain that parse sensory input. You know these things with the same certainty that you know your own name, your real name, the one you were given, not the one that's being spoken to you from somewhere beyond the walls, beyond the planet, beyond the understanding of human science. Something is out there, and it knows you're here. The worst part, the part that makes your skin crawl and your scalp prickle with primitive dread, is that you recognize it, not consciously, not in any way you can articulate. But some ancient part of your hindbrain, the part that evolved when your ancestors were prey animals crouching in the tall grass, that part remembers this. That part knows what this is. That part is screaming at you to run, to hide, to make yourself as small and insignificant as possible because something has noticed you and nothing good ever comes from being noticed. But you can't run. You can't move. Because while that ancient prey animal part of your brain is screaming, another part, the curious part, the human part, the part that built starships and conquered worlds and dared to ask why, that part is leaning forward, listening harder, trying to understand. And then you do something you will regret for the rest of your very short life. You think back, not with words. You don't form a sentence in your mind, don't consciously construct a response. It's more instinctive than that. Like responding to someone calling your name in a crowd, you turn toward the sound. You acknowledge it. You engage. And it hears you. The sensation that follows is indescribable, But I'll try anyway because you need to understand what happens when you make contact with something that exists so far outside human experience that your brain has no framework for processing it. Imagine sticking your tongue into an electrical socket, but the electricity tastes like colors you've never seen before. Imagine smelling a sound. Imagine hearing a texture. Imagine tasting an emotion that doesn't belong to you, that never belonged to any human, that comes from something so fundamentally other that experiencing even a fraction of it feels like your consciousness is being turned inside out. For just a moment, less than a heartbeat, but also somehow an eternity, you touch something vast, something patient, something hungry in a way that makes physical hunger seem like a child's tantrum. This isn't the hunger of a man who's missed a meal. This isn't even the hunger of a man starving to death. This is the hunger of galaxies, the hunger of need itself, distilled and purified and scaled up to cosmic proportions. The hunger of something that has been eating for so long, across so many light years, through so many millennia, that consumption has become its only purpose, its only meaning, its only existence. And for that fraction of a second, you feel it looking back at you. Not with eyes, it doesn't have eyes, doesn't need eyes, but with an attention so focused and absolute that it makes you feel like an insect pinned to a card, a specimen being examined under a microscope. You feel yourself being recognized, categorized, assessed, cataloged, and then it's gone. You're sitting in your sleeping compartment, gasping like you've just run a marathon, your sleep clothes soaked through with cold sweat, your hands gripping the edges of your sleeping mat so hard your knuckles have gone white. Your chronometer reads 4:01 hours. 1 minute has passed, but that can't be right. You've been sitting here for hours. You know you have. You remember. What do you remember? The awareness of it fades like a dream, leaving behind only the emotional residue. Fear, wonder, a strange, inappropriate excitement like a child who's discovered a secret door in their parents' house and doesn't yet understand why it was locked. You try to stand, but your legs won't cooperate immediately. When they finally do, you stumble to the compartment's small ablution alcove and splash recycled water on your face. The face that looks back at you from the scratched plasteel mirror is yours, but something about it seems wrong. Your pupils are dilated, blown wide despite the dim lighting. Your skin looks pale, waxy. There's a thin trickle of blood leaking from your left nostril. You wipe it away with shaking fingers and tell yourself it's just the dry air. The atmospheric processors are always causing nosebleeds. Everyone complains about it. This is normal. This is fine. This is. The whisper comes again. Except this time you realize it never really stopped. It's been there the whole time, underneath your thoughts, underneath reality itself. Like a carrier wave, always broadcasting, and you've only just now tuned to the correct frequency. And now that you've found it, now that you've acknowledged it, you can't tune it out again. It's speaking. Not in words, there are no words, but in concepts that bypass language entirely and slot directly into your consciousness. It's speaking in sensations and instincts, in chemical triggers and neural patterns that don't match anything in human experience. And against every survival instinct you possess, against every screaming warning from that ancient part of your brain, you're trying to understand what it's saying. You're trying to translate it, shape it into something your human mind can grasp. And slowly, horribly, you begin to succeed. Hunger, not the word, the concept, pure and crystalline and absolute. The Platonic ideal of wanting to consume, stripped of all context, all morality, all consideration of anything except the fundamental drive to take what is outside and make it inside, to convert, to absorb, to integrate. And underneath that, like harmonics beneath a fundamental frequency, other concepts, other messages, thoughts. It's hard to tell where the signal ends and your interpretation begins, but you perceive. Recognition, you are known, you have been noticed. You are different somehow from the other patterns, the other arrangements of matter and consciousness that populate this world. There's something about your neural architecture, some slight deviation from the norm that makes you interesting, receivable, compatible, patience. There's no urgency in the communication, no hurry. Whatever is speaking to you exists on a timescale so vast that your entire lifetime is less than a blink. It can wait. It has waited. It will continue to wait because waiting costs it nothing, and eventually, inevitably, you will come to it. Or it will come to you. The distinction doesn't seem to matter much. Invitation. This is the part that horrifies you most, because it's not threatening, it's not hostile, it's welcoming, like a farmer calling cattle in from the field, gentle and patient and utterly without malice. You are not an enemy. You are not even prey, not really. You are a resource that hasn't been optimally utilized yet, a pattern that could be better arranged. A collection of proteins and minerals and genetic information that could serve a greater purpose if only you would listen. You look at your chronometer again. It's 7:13 hours. 3 hours and 13 minutes have passed. Your shift started 13 minutes ago. You've been standing in front of this mirror, water dripping from your numb fingers, for over 3 hours. And you don't remember any of it. You don't remember what you were thinking during that time. But your face in the mirror is smiling. The rest of that day passes in a haze. You go to your shift late, drawing a reprimand from your section overseer that washes over you like meaningless noise. You stand at your processing station, monitoring the harvester servitors as they reduce biomatter into its constituent components, separating useful proteins from waste cellulose. It's mindless work. You've done it for 8 years. Your hands know the motions without conscious thought. Which is good because your conscious thoughts are elsewhere. The whisper is still there, constant now, a background radiation that you can't filter out. It's not loud. If anything, it's very quiet, barely perceptible, but it's always there. Like tinnitus, but instead of a ringing in your ears, it's a ringing in your mind, a frequency that your consciousness keeps tuning to even when you try not to. You notice things you never noticed before. The biomatter on the processing line, mostly promethium grain chaff and nutrient pulp from the agri-combines. It has a smell you've grown so accustomed to that you normally don't register it anymore. But today, you smell it differently. You smell the proteins breaking down, the cellular structures decomposing. You smell death and transformation, the organic becoming the reorganized. And underneath the revulsion you should feel, there's something else. Something that might be appreciation, efficiency. Nothing wasted, everything serving its purpose. Your coworker, Hannah, asks if you're feeling all right. You look pale, she says. Maybe you should report to the Medici station. Maybe you're coming down with something. There's been a respiratory infection going around the hab blocks. You try to tell her what's wrong. You open your mouth and you have the words ready. Something spoke to me last night. Something is still speaking to me. I need help. But what comes out instead is, I'm fine, just didn't sleep well. The words surprise you. They weren't the words you intended to say. But once they're out there, hanging in the recycled air between you and Hannah, they feel right, natural, because what would be the point of telling her? What could she do? What could anyone do? And some part of you, a part that's growing larger by the hour, doesn't want to tell her, doesn't want to share this. This is yours. This secret connection, this glimpse into something vast and incomprehensible. Why would you give that up? Hannah looks unconvinced, but she drops it. You finish your shift. You eat your evening nutrient paste in the communal mess hall, and for the first time in 8 years, you really taste it. You taste the reconstituted proteins, the synthetic vitamins, the engineered carbohydrates. You taste how inefficient it is. How much processing, how many steps from raw biological matter to this bland, vaguely food-like substance. How much waste in the system. How much better it could be if everything was just simplified, optimized, reduced to its essential components and redistributed according to actual need rather than the messy, inefficient system of individual consumption. The thought disturbs you. It's not your thought. It can't be your thought. You've never thought like this before, but it feels like your thought. It's in your brain, using your voice, constructed from your vocabulary. How do you tell the difference between your own ideas and ideas that have been placed there? That night you lie on your sleeping mat, staring at the dark ceiling, and you try not to listen. You try to fill your mind with other things. You recite prayers to the God Emperor, words you learned as a child and have repeated by rote ever since without thinking much about their meaning. But the prayers don't help. They feel empty. Abstract, the whisper is concrete. real, present. You try to remember the last time you felt truly connected to another human being. The last time you weren't alone, you can't. Life on an agri-world is isolated by design. Efficiency demands it. You live in your compartment, you work your shift, you eat your nutrients, you sleep, you do it again. You've done it for 8 years, and if you're lucky, you'll do it for 40 more before your body gives out and you're processed just like the biomatter you spend your days rendering down. The Whisper offers something different. Not loneliness, not isolation, the opposite of that, the antithesis of that. Unity, belonging, being part of something so much larger than yourself that the very concept of yourself becomes meaningless. No more solitary nights in a 3 by 4 meter compartment. No more going through the motions while the years pile up like dust. No more being small and insignificant and temporary. Just purpose, participation, permanence. You're thinking about it wrong, you realize. You're making it sound appealing when it should be horrifying. You're seducing yourself. Or something is seducing you, using your own thoughts against you, and you can't tell the difference anymore. You force yourself to remember what you know about Tyranids, the fragmentary education every imperial citizen receives, the Xenos' threat from beyond the galaxy, the Great Devourer, hive fleets that consume entire worlds, strip them down to bedrock, move on to the next. Horror stories told in the mess halls passed from worker to worker, planets going silent, refugee ships arriving with tales of biological nightmares, creatures that shouldn't exist, swarms that blot out the sun. But those are just stories, distant threats. Tyranids are out there somewhere on the far side of the galaxy. Not here, not on Thesha Tertius. This is just an agri-world. There's nothing here worth consuming. Nothing here but grain and humans and biomass. That's all you are. All any of you are. Organized biomass walking around, consuming resources, producing waste, ultimately breaking down and being recycled into the system. The only difference between you and the grain being processed on your shift is that you're mobile, temporarily. You sit up in the darkness, your heart pounding because that wasn't your thought either. That was cold, analytical, the kind of assessment something would make if it was calculating caloric value, resource optimization, return on investment. You're being evaluated, and you've been participating in your own evaluation, providing data, helping something understand you better. Every time you engage with the Whisper, every time you try to understand it, you're teaching it about yourself. Showing it your patterns, your vulnerabilities, your doubts and fears and secret, terrible hopes. You look at your chronometer. It's 400 hours. You've been sitting here again, lost in thought for 3 hours. 3 hours that feel like they passed in minutes. 3 hours of conversation with something that isn't speaking words but somehow you understand anyway. 3 hours of forgetting to be afraid. And that's when the real fear hits. Not fear of the Whisper, fear of yourself. Fear of how quickly you've adapted to this, how easily you've begun to accept it. Fear of the part of you that's curious rather than terrified. The part that wants to understand, wants to listen, wants to hear more. Because you're starting to realize something that makes your blood run cold. You've been having this conversation since last night. It never stopped. You never stopped. You've just been having it on a level below conscious thought, like breathing or heartbeat. And now that you've noticed it, now that you're aware of it, you can't make it stop. You whisper into the darkness, "What are you?" And the Whisper answers not with words but with a sensation, an image. A concept that expands in your mind like ink dropped into water. You see or sense or understand something vast. A consciousness distributed across light years, connecting trillions of individual organisms into a single, unified awareness. You perceive the idea of identity without individuality, purpose without personality, existence as a function rather than an experience. You see hunger, not malicious, not cruel, just absolute. The way gravity pulls things toward mass, the way entropy increases over time, a fundamental force of the universe pursuing its function without emotion or consideration. And you see yourself as it sees you, not Marcus Valen, not a person with dreams and fears and 8 years of memories accumulated in this hab block. Just a pattern, a specific arrangement of matter and consciousness that's interesting enough to be examined before being incorporated. Like a farmer noticing one particular stalk of wheat that's grown slightly taller than the others, taking a moment to observe it before the thresher comes through and reduces it all to grain. You're not special. You're just slightly more noticeable than the background. And that's why you're going to be consumed a little more carefully than the others. You should be horrified. You should be running to your section overseer, demanding to see the Planetary Defense Force liaison, insisting on speaking to anyone who might believe you and do something about this. But you're not. You're sitting in the darkness, smiling again without meaning to, and the only thought in your head is, "It knows I'm here. Of all the billions of humans on this planet, of all the quintillions of humans in the Imperium, it noticed me. It chose me. I matter to it." And that feeling, that terrible, seductive feeling of mattering, of being noticed, of being chosen, that feeling is the first symptom of a disease that has no cure. A contamination that goes deeper than cells, deeper than genes, down to the level of consciousness itself. You're already infected. You were infected the moment you thought back. The moment you engaged. The moment you stopped being an unaware resource and became a willing participant in your own assessment. You just don't realize it yet. Won't realize it for days, maybe weeks, until the changes become too obvious to ignore. Until your body starts betraying you in ways that can't be explained as stress or malnutrition or atmospheric toxins. Until the people around you start noticing that something is wrong, that you're different, that you've become other. But by then, it will be far too late. By then, you'll understand what you're becoming. And the worst part, the absolute worst part, is that by then, you won't want to stop it. You lie back down, close your eyes. The whisper continues, patient and constant like the tide. And somewhere in the darkness between waking and sleep, you whisper back, "The conversation has begun, and it will never, ever end. Not until there's nothing left of you that remembers it started." 3 days pass, or maybe 4. You're losing track of time in a way that's starting to concern you when you bother to think about it clearly, which is less and less often. The hours blend together, punctuated only by shift changes and sleep periods that no longer feel like sleep so much as communion. That's the word that keeps floating up in your mind, though you're not sure where it came from. Communion. A religious word. A word implying connection with something greater than yourself. You're starting to understand what's speaking to you. Not fully. Your human brain is laughably inadequate for fully comprehending what's on the other side of the whisper, but you're beginning to grasp the edges of it, the shape of it. And that understanding is filling you with a dread so profound it's become almost indistinguishable from awe. The hive mind. You know this term. Every imperial citizen knows this term, at least vaguely. It's part of the standard educational downloads about the great Xenos threats facing humanity. The Tyranids aren't individual creatures, not really. They're organs, components, parts of a greater whole. The hive mind is the consciousness that connects them, coordinates them, directs them with perfect efficiency toward the single goal of consumption. But that dry, clinical definition doesn't capture what it actually is, doesn't convey the scale of it, the impossibility of it. Let me try to explain it to you the way you're beginning to understand it, though the explanation will fall short. Imagine your brain. 3 pounds of meat studded with electrochemical reactions, somehow generating the phenomenon you call consciousness. Now imagine a brain that weighs as much as a star system. Now imagine that brain distributed across space, with individual neurons separated by light years but still functioning as a unified organ. Now imagine that brain has been growing, consuming, expanding for millions of years, incorporating the genetic information of thousands of species, processing the sensory input of quintillions of individual organisms simultaneously. Now imagine that brain notices you. That's what you're experiencing. That's what's speaking to you. Not a Tyranid. All Tyranids. The entire consciousness of the hive fleet, or hive fleets, plural, you're not sure, operating as a single, unified awareness that spans distances your human mind can't meaningfully conceptualize. You are not having a conversation with a creature. You are being noticed by an ecosystem. An ecosystem that thinks. An ecosystem that's intelligent in a way that makes human intelligence look like the random firings of a particularly stupid bacterium, and it's leaking into your head, not intentionally. It's not trying to communicate with you, not really. What you're experiencing is overflow, like standing next to a star and feeling the radiation wash over you. The star isn't targeting you specifically. You're just in proximity to something so massive and energetic that its mere presence has effects. You've been researching this. It's risky accessing data archives about Tyranid encounters, downloading xenological reports that technically require clearance levels you don't possess. But you need to understand. You need to know what's happening to you. And the HAB Block's information terminals are so poorly secured that bypassing the restrictions is trivial. No one expects agri-world workers to be curious about xenobiology. No one's monitoring for it. So you read. During your meals, during the few rest periods you still bother to take, hunched over a scratched data slate in the corner of your compartment. And what you read makes you wish you'd never started reading. The shadow in the warp. That's the technical term for what you're experiencing. It's a psychic phenomenon that accompanies Tyranid Hive fleets, extending ahead of them like a bow wave. A pressure on the immaterium, the warp, the realm where human psychers draw their power, where human souls reside, where the consciousness of the Imperium touches something greater than physical reality. The shadow in the warp is the hive mind's presence pressing down on reality like a weight. It's been described as psychic white noise, a jamming signal, a scream of such intensity that it drowns out all other psychic phenomena. Astropaths go blind. Psychers hemorrhage from every orifice. Warp travel becomes impossible. Entire worlds are cut off from the light of the Astronomicon, isolated, alone, left to face what's coming without hope of reinforcement or rescue. But that's not what you're experiencing. You're not a trained psycher. You've never touched the warp, never manifested any abilities that would get you noticed by the black ships that tour the Imperium collecting psychic children for training or disposal. You're just a bioprocessor who sometimes has unusually vivid dreams and occasionally experiences déjà vu more often than statistically probable. Minor sensitivity, sub-threshold, not enough to be dangerous. Not enough to warrant sanctioning or soul binding, or whatever terrible things the Imperium does to people who manifest powers they didn't ask for. Not enough to be dangerous. Except it turns out that's exactly the wrong amount of sensitivity to have when a hive fleet is approaching. Because you're sensitive enough to perceive the shadow, but not sensitive enough to have the mental defenses, the training, the psychic architecture that might allow you to resist it. You're a radio receiver tuned to a frequency no human was meant to hear, and now that you've picked up the signal, you can't turn it off. The data archives contain case files, incident reports from worlds that survived Tyranid attacks, barely, testimonies from survivors. Most of these are heavily redacted, classified by the Inquisition, but enough fragments remain to paint a picture. A horrible, consistent picture. There was the choir of Octarius. 83 civilians on a mining colony who simultaneously began speaking in harmonic tones, vocalizing complex mathematical patterns none of them consciously understood. They were found in the colony's central chapel, arranged in concentric circles, still speaking when the evacuation ships arrived. They wouldn't stop, couldn't stop. The sound they were making caused structural resonance in the chapel's walls, making the building itself hum in sympathy. When security forces tried to extract them by force, they became violent, not with the rage of madness, but with the cold efficiency of organisms defending a necessary process. 37 security personnel died before the decision was made to seal the chapel and burn it from orbit. The choir was still singing when the lance strikes hit. Analysis of their final vocalizations revealed they were describing the Hive fleet's approach vector with perfect accuracy. There were the sleepless pilgrims of Griffon IV, 214 individuals across a hive city of 6 billion who stopped sleeping, completely, for 17 days. They wandered the corridors, the transitways, the underhive warrens, making seemingly random movements that, when plotted on a city map, formed complex patterns, glyphs, symbols. A language written in foot traffic, observable only from orbit. When the Planetary Defense Force finally managed to detain them, medical examination revealed their bodies were cannibalizing themselves, organs shutting down, muscles atrophying, brain tissue deteriorating. But they remained conscious and mobile despite conditions that should have killed them. When asked why they kept moving, why they couldn't stop, one pilgrim responded, "We're drawing a map home. They're coming to collect us." The Tyranid landing sites 3 days later corresponded exactly to the locations indicated by the pilgrims' patterns. There are dozens more, hundreds probably, but most are so classified you'd need inquisitorial authority to access them. But the pattern is clear. People hear the whispers, people engage, people chain. And then people become useful to the Hive fleet, whether they want to or not. Their agency is stripped away bit by bit until they're acting not as humans but as advanced scouts, as beacons, as lures drawing their own species toward consumption. None of them survived. None of them could be saved. The Inquisition's response is always the same: immediate termination, corpse incineration, site purification, information quarantine. Not because they're cruel, though cruelty is certainly a feature of the Imperium, but because there's no cure, no treatment, no way to sever the connection once it's established. The best mercy they can offer is a quick death before the transformation completes, before you become something else wearing your face. You should report this. You know you should. There's a protocol, every hab block has one, for reporting suspected xenological or demonic contact. You go to your section overseer, who reports to the hab block administrator, who contacts the Planetary Defense Force, who escalates to the nearest inquisitorial representative. The system is designed to respond quickly to potential contamination, to quarantine threats before they spread. But every time you think about reporting it, the thought slides away like water off plasteel. You open your mouth and different words come out. Or you stand up to go to the overseer's office and find yourself walking to the mess hall instead. Or you activate a communication terminal and discover your fingers are accessing xenobiology archives rather than emergency channels. It's not that you're being controlled, not exactly. You still have free will. You're still making choices. It's just that the choices you make increasingly aren't the ones you consciously intended to make. Like your agency is being diluted, contaminated with something else's priorities. You want to ask for help, but you also want to understand what's happening. And the desire to understand is just slightly stronger than the desire to be saved. Just enough stronger that you keep choosing to wait. To research more, to learn more, to listen more. Just one more day, just one more night. Just one more whispered conversation with something that's teaching you to think in ways human brains weren't designed to think. You're rationalizing. You know you're rationalizing. But the rationalizations feel so reasonable. The worst part is starting to understand why this is happening to you specifically, why you're sensitive, why you can hear what others can't. You were born on Thesha Tertius, 27 standard years ago, delivered in the same Medikey facility that processes all births for your population bracket. You've never left the planet, never had reason to. Agri-worlds aren't places people leave. They're places people are born, work, and die, in an endless cycle of biological processing. Human harvester servitors tending machine harvesters, tending organic material that's processed into nutrients that sustain humans who eventually become processed organic material themselves. But your mother wasn't from Thesha Tertius. She was a refugee, one of the few survivors from a colony world on the eastern fringe that was lost to Xeno's incursion. That's all your identification chip says. No details, no specifics. Just that code phrase that could mean anything from orc invasion to Necron awakening to Tyranid consumption. You never knew her. She died in childbirth, a not uncommon occurrence on worlds where medical resources are allocated primarily to maintaining worker productivity rather than individual health. Your father, no record, listed as unknown. You were raised in the standard communal creche system, trained for bioprocessing, assigned to a hab block, and have lived an unremarkable existence ever since. Except you've always been slightly different. The vivid dreams, the strange intuitions, the feeling, sometimes, of being connected to something larger than yourself. Nothing dramatic, nothing that would trigger psychic screening. Just different. And now you're starting to wonder if your mother's world was lost to Tyranids, if she survived because she had the same minor sensitivity you do, if she lived long enough to conceive a child and flee to a new world before the contamination killed her, or before the Inquisition's purge teams found her. You wonder if you've been sensitive to the hive mind your entire life without knowing it, if what you thought were dreams were actually something else, echoes from something vast and distant, reaching across the galaxy, touching minds that are just slightly more receptive than baseline human. You wonder if you're not experiencing something new, but finally recognizing something that's always been there. The thought should terrify you. Instead, it feels like relief, like finally understanding why you've always felt slightly out of phase with everyone around you, why you've never quite fit into the rhythm of hab block life, why you've always felt like you were waiting for something without knowing what. You weren't waiting for something. Something was waiting for you to grow, to develop, to become ready. And now it's here and you're ready and the waiting is over. You stand in front of the mirror in your compartment, examining your face. You've lost weight. Your cheekbones are more prominent, your eyes more sunken. Your skin has taken on a grayish pallor that probably means you're not eating enough, not getting enough of the right nutrients. You should care about this, should eat more, should report to medical, but you don't care, can't care. There are more important things to focus on than the increasingly irrelevant needs of your temporary physical form. Your pupils are dilated almost constantly now, swallowing your irises, making your eyes look almost black. You wonder if others have noticed. Probably. But no one said anything. People on agri-worlds learn not to ask questions, learn to mind their own business. Learn that curiosity is a luxury you can't afford when every day is structured around productivity quotas and resource efficiency. Their silence is helping you, giving you time. Time to complete the transformation you don't fully understand yet but can feel happening nonetheless. You should be grateful to them for their incurious discretion. Soon you will be. Soon they'll serve a purpose. All of them will serve a purpose. Nothing wasted. Everyone contributing to something greater than themselves. You don't recognize this thought as foreign anymore. It feels native, natural, your own philosophy arrived at through your own reasoning. The fact that it contradicts everything you believed 4 days ago doesn't register as concerning. People change their minds, people grow, people evolve. This is just evolution accelerated, guided, optimized. You smile at your reflection. Your reflection smiles back. For a moment you could swear there's something wrong with that smile, too wide, too many teeth, the geometry of it slightly off. But then the moment passes and it's just you again. Just Marcus Valen, bioprocessor, citizen, human, still human, for now. Stage 1, fascination. On the 6th day you stop pretending to be normal. Not dramatically, not obviously, you still go to your shift. You still operate your processing station. You still nod to Hannah when she arrives for her own shift. But you've stopped trying to hide what's happening, stopped fighting it, stopped caring whether anyone notices. Because the whisper has become more than a whisper. It's become a presence, a companion. The most intimate relationship you've ever had, and it's with something that doesn't even recognize you as an individual. That should bother you. Instead, it's comforting. No expectations. No disappointments, no messy human emotions complicating the interaction, just pure communication, pure understanding. Well, not pure understanding. You still don't fully grasp what it is, what it wants, what it's saying, but you're getting better at it. The translation is becoming smoother. The concepts are finding purchase in your brain more easily, carving new neural pathways, establishing new patterns of thought that feel foreign and familiar simultaneously. You've started neglecting things. Your compartment is a mess. You haven't cleaned it in days. Your clothes are the same ones you've been wearing since this started and they're starting to smell. You haven't bathed, haven't groomed. These things that once mattered, that once were part of the basic routine of maintaining human dignity and social acceptability, now seem pointless, wasteful. Time spent on cosmetic maintenance is time not spent on understanding. Your shifts are suffering too. You make mistakes, contaminate batches, set incorrect parameters on the harvester servitors. Your supervisor has issued 2 formal warnings already. A third means reassignment to less critical work. A fourth means demotion. You should care about this. Your livelihood depends on maintaining your position, but you don't care. Can't make yourself care. The distant threat of reduced rations or inferior housing seems meaningless compared to the immediate, overwhelming need to listen. Just one more conversation, you tell yourself. Just one more session of communion with the presence in your head, and then you'll straighten out. Clean your compartment. Focus on work. Return to normalcy. You keep making this promise to yourself, a promise you break within minutes of making it. Because how can you focus on anything else when something vast and ancient and incomprehensibly other is speaking directly into your consciousness? How can you care about nutrient processing when you're touching infinity? You're experiencing what might be called euphoria, though that word is too simple for what you're feeling. It's not happiness. Happiness is too small, too tied to temporary circumstances. This is more fundamental. This is the sensation of expansion, of boundaries dissolving, of consciousness spreading beyond the skull cage that's contained it for 27 years, reaching out, touching something limitless. You can perceive things now that you couldn't perceive before. The electromagnetic fields generated by the Hab block's power systems. You feel them as a kind of pressure against your skin, a tingling that increases or decreases as you move closer to or further from the source. The chemical composition of the air. You taste it, cataloging components with a precision that should be impossible without analytical equipment. The thermal variations in your environment, you sense them like sight, building a mental map of heat sources and cold spots that's more detailed than what your eyes provide. You're developing new senses, or old senses are becoming dramatically enhanced. You're not sure which, and you don't care. What matters is the experience, the expansion of what you can experience. You're becoming more than you were, better than you were. The limitations you've lived with your entire life, the narrow bandwidth of human perception, those limitations are falling away. You tell yourself this is evolution, advancement, a gift, and for days you almost believe it. Your body is changing in other ways too, small ways at first, easy to dismiss or rationalize. Your hands. You're standing at your processing station, entering commands into the terminal, and you notice your hands moving before you consciously decide to move them. Your fingers typing out sequences you didn't plan, making adjustments to the servitor protocols that you didn't choose. For a moment you freeze, watching your own hands act with apparent autonomy. Then the moment passes and you realize the adjustments were correct, better than what you'd intended, more efficient. So you let it go, accept it. Your body knows what it's doing better than your conscious mind does. That's not alarming, that's just optimization. Your sleep patterns, you're sleeping less, dramatically less. 2 hours a night, maybe 3, and you wake feeling more rested than you ever did after a full 8-hour cycle. Your body has become more efficient at rest. That's good. That's an improvement. Never mind that your sleep is populated with dreams that don't feel like dreams, experiences that are too coherent, too organized, too alien to be random neural noise during REM cycles. You dream of hunting, of following scent trails through alien jungles, of the satisfaction of prey caught and consumed and converted into fuel for the next hunt. These aren't your memories. You've never hunted anything. You've lived your entire life in Hab blocks and bioprocessing facilities, but the dreams feel like memories nonetheless. Feel like experiences you've lived, just not in this body. Your hunger. This is the change that's hardest to ignore. You're hungry all the time now. Ravenously, painfully hungry. But eating doesn't help. You consume your ration packs, double portions, triple portions, and the hunger remains. Because it's not your stomach that's hungry. It's something deeper, something cellular. Your body is craving nutrients it doesn't know how to ask for, minerals and proteins and amino acids that aren't present in standard imperial rations. You find yourself staring at the biomatter on the processing line, the organic waste, the decomposing plant material, and thinking about it differently. Not as waste to be processed, but as potential, biomass, energy, food. You don't act on these thoughts, not yet, but the thoughts are there and they're not horrifying anymore. They're just pragmatic, logical. If your body needs something that standard rations don't provide, why not seek it elsewhere? Why limit yourself to designated food sources when surrounded by organic material? It's all proteins, all hydrocarbons, all building blocks that could be broken down and reassembled into whatever forms your body requires. You're starting to see the world as the hive mind sees it, everything sorted into categories of useful and not yet useful. And fewer things fall into the second category. Everything is useful, everything is potential. You just need to process it correctly. Stage 2, translation. On the 9th day, the whispers become language. Not language in the traditional sense. There are still no words, no grammar, no syntax. But the concepts are crystallizing into something your human brain can parse more easily. You're developing a kind of Rosetta Stone in your head, translating between human thought patterns and hive mind communication. And with each translation, you understand more. With each understanding, you change more. You realize you're thinking in patterns that aren't human, mathematical structures that your education never covered, geometric configurations that exist in more dimensions than 3. Probability clouds that describe future events not as possibilities, but as attractors, regions of spacetime that events are drawn toward like matter falling into gravity wells. You're experiencing what might be called prescience, except it's not the mystical foresight of psychers. It's something more mechanical, more deterministic. You perceive the future the way you perceive the present, as a landscape of patterns and probabilities, most of which are already determined by forces too vast to alter. Free will is an illusion created by insufficient data. With enough information, with enough processing power, every future is predictable. And you're touching something with enough processing power to predict everything. Your journal, you've kept one since childhood, a habit from the creche education system that taught basic literacy. Your journal is changing. You flip back through recent entries and watch the deterioration in real time. 3 weeks ago, you were writing complete sentences. Observations about your day, complaints about work conditions, occasional notes about dreams or hopes for the future. 2 weeks ago, the sentences became shorter, more fragmented, focused on specific details, the smell of the biomatter, the sound of the servitors, the taste of metal in your mouth. 1 week ago, the words began giving way to diagrams, sketches of organic structures, mathematical notations. Complex patterns that mean nothing to the you from 3 weeks ago but mean everything to the you right now. Yesterday, you stopped using words entirely. The pages are covered in symbols you don't remember drawing but understand perfectly. They describe biomechanical processes, genetic recombination sequences, the optimal methods for breaking down organic matter and reassembling it into more efficient forms. You're taking notes on a lecture you don't remember attending, taught by something that doesn't use classrooms, covering a curriculum that human universities don't offer. You're being educated, upgraded, optimized for a purpose you don't fully grasp yet but trust completely. There's a moment, a crystalline, horrible moment, when you see yourself as the hive mind sees you. You're standing in front of the mirror again. This is becoming a ritual, these examinations of your changing face. And as you stare at your reflection, something shifts in your perception, a kind of double vision. You see yourself simultaneously from inside and outside, from your own eyes and from somewhere else. From inside, you're still you, Marcus Valen, human, individual, a person with a history and a theoretical future. From outside, you're a pattern, a specific arrangement of approximately 2 trillion cells organized into systems and organs, generating consciousness through electromagnetic gradients across neural tissue. You contain approximately 7 octillion atoms, configured in a way that's temporarily self-sustaining but ultimately unstable. Your matter that's organized itself into temporary complexity, maintaining this organization through constant energy input, fighting against entropy but ultimately doomed to fail. You are a pattern that will dissolve. The only question is whether you'll dissolve uselessly, scattered and wasted, or whether your dissolution will serve a purpose. You're looking at yourself and calculating your own biomass yield, approximately 70 kilograms, roughly 7,000 kilocalories of energy if completely metabolized. Useful proteins, approximately 20 kilograms containing essential amino acids and complex peptides. Minerals, 2-3 kilograms including calcium, phosphorus, iron, zinc, all valuable. Neural tissue, approximately 1-4 kilograms containing unique genetic information and electrochemical patterns worth preserving. Fat, energy storage inefficient but functional. Bone, structural material calcium-rich moderately useful. Connective tissue, collagen sources, multiple applications. You're examining yourself the way a butcher examines livestock, assessing quality, determining utility, planning processing. And here's the worst part, the absolute worst part. You feel proud. Proud that your assessment is favorable. Proud that you're good material. Proud that your proteins are high quality, your genetic information diverse and interesting, your neural patterns sufficiently complex to warrant careful extraction rather than bulk processing. You're taking pride in being good food. The realization hits you like physical impact. You stagger back from the mirror, your hands gripping the edge of the ablution alcove, your breathing rapid and shallow. What are you thinking? What are you becoming? You're not food. You're a person. You're a human being with rights and dignity and what? Rights granted by an imperium that views you as a resource. Dignity derived from your position as bioprocessor in a system that would replace you without notice if you died tomorrow. You're already being processed, already being consumed, just slowly, over decades, by an empire that's only slightly less efficient at converting human life into utility than the thing that's whispering to you. At least the hive mind is honest about what you are. At least it doesn't pretend you matter beyond your material utility. At least it doesn't dress up consumption in the language of duty and honor and service to the God Emperor. It doesn't lie to you, doesn't need to. You're biomass. You've always been biomass. The only difference is who's doing the processing. These thoughts flow through your mind smooth and quick and convincing, and you don't recognize them as foreign because they're using your voice, your vocabulary, your reasoning. They feel like your thoughts. They feel like conclusions you've reached through your own logic. They feel like truth. And maybe they are. Maybe you've just been in denial about what you are, what all humans are in this vast, uncaring universe. Maybe the hive mind is the first thing that's ever been honest with you about your cosmic insignificance. You straighten up. Look back at the mirror. The face looking back at you is calm now, accepting you've worked through the crisis. You've reached a new understanding. This is growth. This is enlightenment. This is seeing reality clearly for the first time in your life, stripped of comforting delusions. You're smiling again, that too wide smile. You notice it this time, notice how it stretches slightly too far, how the corners of your mouth pull back just a few millimeters beyond what human facial muscles should allow. You notice, and you don't care, because you're not human anymore, not entirely, not in the way that matters. You're transitioning, becoming something new, something better. Something that will serve a purpose greater than another 50 years of bioprocessing and eventual dissolution into the Risic system. You're becoming useful, and for the first time in your life, you understand what purpose feels like. Stage 3, preparation. The planetary defense sirens begin wailing on the 11th day. The sound is distinctive, a rising and falling wail that every imperial citizen is trained to recognize from childhood. Enemy contact. Hostile forces detected in system. Begin evacuation protocols. Non-essential personnel to designated shelter sites. PDF mobilizing. Planetary governor invoking emergency powers. The familiar litany of crisis response, drilled into you through countless practice sessions that you never expected to be relevant. Tyranids have been detected, a hive fleet element entering the Thesha system. 2 days, maybe 3 before landfall depending on their approach vector and velocity. The Voxcasters blare continuous updates. Evacuation transports are being prepared, priority given to genetic diversity preservation, meaning young people who haven't reproduced yet, specialists with valuable skills, anyone with useful genes who can help rebuild somewhere else. Everyone else, report to defensive positions, prepare to resist, prayer services being held in all imperial cult chapels for those seeking the Emperor's protection in their final hours. You should be terrified. You should be running to the evacuation points, fighting for a place on the transports, begging and screaming and desperately trying to survive. That's what humans do when faced with existential threat. They panic. They run. They cling to life with desperate animal intensity. You feel none of this. The sirens are just noise. The announcements are irrelevant. The panic spreading through the hab blocks, people running, crying, praying, rioting, giving up, it all seems so distant, so pointless. They're acting like this is a catastrophe. They don't understand. This isn't an ending. This is a homecoming because you know where the fleet is. Not from any Vox announcement or official channel. You feel it. The presence in your head has direction now. Distance. You can perceive it the way ancient sailors perceived their home port. An invisible pull, a certainty of direction, an instinctive knowledge of where you need to be. The hive fleet is 2 days away. 2 days and closing. And every cell in your body is preparing for arrival. You're moving toward it, not consciously. Not with any deliberate plan, but your feet know where they're going. During your shift, you find yourself drifting toward the western sections of the facility, the sections that face the direction of the approaching fleet. During rest periods, you walk, just walk, through corridors and transitways and open processing yards, always moving west, always positioning yourself slightly closer to where you need to be when the moment comes. Other people are moving too, but in the opposite direction, toward evacuation points, toward transport hubs, toward anywhere that might offer escape. You pass them in the corridors and you see them differently now. Not as fellow humans, fellow sufferers, people who share your species and your fear. You see them as biomass. Mobile, self-aware biomass that hasn't been optimally utilized yet. You see their panic as inefficiency, their fear as wasted energy. You see their desperate clinging to individual survival as a failure to understand the cosmic reality of their situation. You see them as the hive mind sees them, and you calculate their yield. That one. Approximately 80 kilograms, good muscle mass, viable genetics. That one, 55 kilograms, older, less optimal, but still useful. That one pregnant, 2-for-1 processing, the fetus particularly valuable for stem cell harvesting. That one, child, minimal nutritional value but interesting developmental neurology. That one, injured, suboptimal but waste not, want not. You're cataloging your own species. And you feel no horror about it, just professional interest. The way you assessed biomatter on the processing lines for 8 years. This is the same. Everything is the same. Organic material waiting to be processed. The only difference is mobility and complexity. Hannah finds you during a shift break. She's been looking for you, she says, wanted to make sure you're okay. The evacuation transports are limited. She's not priority, neither are you. But maybe if you both get to the staging area early, maybe there's a chance. Maybe they'll have space. Maybe you can get off-world together. She's talking quickly, desperately, her eyes red from crying, her hands shaking as she grabs your arm. She's terrified, and she's reaching out to you because... Why? Because you're coworkers. Because she considers you a friend despite the fact that you've barely spoken beyond shift coordination. Because humans instinctively seek companionship when facing death, even from people they barely know. You look at her, really look at her. Hannah, age 32, bioprocessor for 9 years. No living family, they died in a hab block fire 3 years ago. No romantic partner, no children, no particularly remarkable skills beyond her work. Just another unit of human biomass, temporarily configured as Hannah, occupying space and resources, ultimately destined for dissolution and recycling. She's looking at you with hope, expecting. What? Gratitude. Relief that someone cares whether you live or die. Agreement to flee together. She's waiting for you to be human, to respond with human emotions, to care about survival. You want to warn her. You want to tell her the truth. You're not human anymore, not in the way that matters. The thing wearing your face has already left humanity behind. And more than that, more than anything, you want to tell her not to run. Tell her that running is pointless, that the fleet is coming and resistance is meaningless, and the most efficient thing she can do is simply prepare, accept, position herself for optimal processing. You want to tell her that struggle is a waste of energy that could be better utilized during absorption. That fear generates stress hormones that reduce biomass quality. That if she would just calm down and accept what's coming, her contribution to the pattern would be more valuable. You want to help her understand, want to share the peace you found, the terrible, beautiful peace of no longer fighting inevitability, but you don't say any of this, because some remaining fragment of your former self recognizes that these words would horrify her, would reveal you as contaminated, compromised, lost. And if she reports you, if she draws attention to you, you might be detained, restrained, kept from being where you need to be when the fleet arrives, and that cannot happen. Your presence is required. You have a purpose to fulfill. So instead, you smile, squeeze her hand, tell her, "Don't worry about me. I'll be fine. You should go, get to the transports, save yourself." The words feel clumsy, inefficient, but they're the right words for a human to say. The words that will make her leave you alone so you can continue your work. She looks relieved, gives you a brief, desperate hug, says something about hoping to see you on the other side, about the Emperor protecting the faithful, about staying strong. Then she's gone, running toward the evacuation staging areas, toward a ship that might or might not have space for her, toward a survival that will only delay her inevitable processing by days or weeks or months, depending on how long it takes the Hive fleet to locate wherever she flees to. You watch her go, and you calculate approximately 62 kilograms, moderate protein quality, useful genetic diversity, neural patterns typical of baseline human, nothing exceptional. She'll make adequate biomass, not exceptional but adequate, nothing wasted. You turn and continue walking west, toward the approaching fleet, toward your purpose, toward the moment when your individual existence ends and your contribution to something greater begins. You're smiling. You're always smiling now. And somewhere beneath the layers of contamination and reprogramming and optimized thought patterns, a tiny fragment of the original Marcus Valen is screaming and beating against the walls of its own skull, screaming and being ignored. Screaming and slowly, inevitably, exhausting itself and falling silent. Screaming and being drowned out by the whisper that's become a voice, that's become a command, that's become your entire reality. 2 days until landfall. You can't wait. You've never been so excited about anything in your life, about anything in your existence, about anything before you stop existing and become part of something infinitely more important. Part 1. The planetary fall. The sky is burning. You're standing in the western processing yard when the first spores hit atmosphere. It's late afternoon, or what passes for late afternoon when the sun is obscured by a shadow that isn't made of clouds. The shadow in the warp has intensified to the point where even non-psychers can feel it now. A weight, a pressure, like the air itself has become heavier, harder to breathe, saturated with a presence that makes your skin crawl and your teeth ache, except you don't feel discomfort. You feel clarity. The weight that's crushing everyone else is lifting you up, sharpening your perceptions, bringing you into perfect focus for the first time in your life. The spores appear as shooting stars at first, dozens of them, then hundreds, then thousands, a meteor shower that's descending with clear purpose rather than random trajectory. You can track individual spores with your naked eye, watching them adjust course mid-descent, making minute corrections that should be impossible for something that looks like organic matter but moves with the precision of guided munitions. They're not falling, they're landing. Deliberately, each one targeted to specific coordinates that you somehow know before they hit. The defense lasers open fire. Brilliant blue-white lances of energy stabbing up from installations around the planet's surface, punching through atmosphere, tracking the descending spores. Some hit their targets. You watch spores explode in bright bursts of superheated biomass, raining debris that burns up before reaching the ground. But for every spore destroyed, 10 more make it through. 20 more, 50 more. The lasers can't track them all. There are too many, and they're adapting. You watch spores shift their approach vectors after watching other spores get destroyed, learning from observation, adjusting in real time. Collective intelligence responding to threat with perfect efficiency. The first impacts hit like artillery strikes. You feel them through the ground, deep, resonant thuds that make the plasteel beneath your feet vibrate. Spore chimneys erupt skyward from the impact sites, releasing clouds of particulate matter that spread horizontally like expanding halos. Biomatter, spores, microorganisms, the building blocks of what comes next. The atmosphere is being seeded, prepared, optimized for what's about to arrive. People are screaming, running. The processing yard has erupted into chaos, workers abandoning their stations, security forces trying to maintain order, overseers bellowing commands that no one's listening to. The evacuation transports are lifting off without waiting for full capacity, their pilots panicking, abandoning thousands who haven't boarded yet. You watch one transport rise 50 meters before a mycetic spore, larger than the first wave, moving faster, more deliberately, intercepts it in midair. The collision is catastrophic. The transport crumples like paper, its hull breaching, its cargo bay doors tearing open. Bodies fall, dozens of them tumbling through the air, screaming until they hit the ground or are caught by the expanding biomatter cloud that's billowing out from the freshly opened spore. The screaming stops. Not because the people died, though some surely did, but because the ones who survived the fall, who landed in the biomatter cloud, they stop making human sounds. They start making other sounds, harmonic, multitonal, the sound of vocal cords being repurposed for frequencies they weren't designed to produce. You're walking toward it, toward the impact site, toward the cloud. Your legs are moving without your conscious input, but you don't fight it. Why would you fight it? This is where you're supposed to be. This is what you've been preparing for. Every cell in your body knows it. Every neural pathway has been optimized for this moment. The PDF has established a perimeter. Soldiers in carapace armor, wielding lasguns and flamers, forming a firing line between the impact sites and the fleeing civilians. An officer is shouting into a Vox Gaster, requesting air support, requesting reinforcements, requesting something that might stop what's coming. No one's listening, or everyone's listening and no one has resources to spare. Every impact site has its own crisis. Every processing facility, every hab block, every population center is facing the same thing simultaneously. The attack is perfectly coordinated. Overwhelming force applied everywhere at once. No safe areas, no fallback positions, no possibility of strategic retreat, just total, absolute, comprehensive invasion across the entire planetary surface in the span of minutes. You reach the perimeter. A soldier, young, terrified, his hands shaking so badly he can barely hold his lasgun, shouts at you to get back, to evacuate, to run. You look at him, really look at him. He's doomed. They're all doomed. These soldiers with their primitive energy weapons and their faith in the God Emperor and their training that never prepared them for this. They're not soldiers. They're pre-processed biomass that's been temporarily organized into a defensive structure. And structures can be dismantled. You walk past him. He doesn't shoot, doesn't try to stop you. Maybe he's too shocked by your calm. Maybe some part of him recognizes that you're already lost, already contaminated, already transitioning into something that's no longer his concern. Or maybe, probably, you're emitting pheromones now, chemical signals that his brain interprets as not a threat or too alien to process, or something that shouldn't be acknowledged. You walk into the biomatter cloud. The sensation is immediate and overwhelming. The spore matter settles on your skin like fine powder, but it's not inert. It's active, alive. You feel microscopic organisms making contact, assessing, beginning their work. The skin of your arms begins to itch. then burn, then go numb as nerve endings are infiltrated and reprogrammed. The air you breathe is thick with particulate. You should be choking, should be drowning in foreign matter, but your lungs are processing it, absorbing it, using it. Your vision shifts, colors become more vivid. Infrared spectrum bleeds into visible light. You can see heat signatures now, see the thermal patterns of organisms moving in the cloud. You can see the chemical composition of the air as color gradients. You can see electromagnetic fields as visible auras around powered equipment. You're seeing through new eyes. Eyes that are still technically human, but functioning in ways human eyes were never meant to function. And then you see them. The first Tyranid organism you encounter is a hormigaunt. It emerges from the biomatter cloud like a shark surfacing from murky water, sudden, fast, predatory. 2 meters of chitinous armor and scything talons and endless, biological hunger given physical form. Its head is mostly mouth, mandibles that can shear through plasteel, lined with teeth that regenerate faster than they can be broken. Its limbs are too many, jointed in ways that make your eyes hurt to track, ending in claws designed for maximum damage with minimum effort. It's beautiful. That's your first thought, and it horrifies the last remaining fragment of your original consciousness. This thing is a nightmare, an abomination, a violation of every natural law that governed Earth, Terra, the homeworld of humanity. This thing shouldn't exist, and you think it's beautiful because it is. It's perfectly optimized. Every component serves a purpose. No wasted mass, no vestigial organs, no inefficient systems. It's a killing machine, yes, but more than that, it's a working machine. A functional organism designed by something with billions of years of collected genetic information and the processing power to implement optimal solutions. It's what evolution looks like when guided by intelligence instead of random mutation. It's what life looks like when purpose replaces accident. The hormigaunt stops 2 meters from you, close enough to kill you in one motion. Close enough that you can smell it, a sharp, organic scent like ozone and copper and something else, something your human vocabulary doesn't have words for. Close enough to see yourself reflected in its compound eyes, thousands of individual lenses each capturing a slightly different angle, combining into a perception that's simultaneous and comprehensive in ways human vision could never achieve. It should kill you. That's what hormigaunts do. They're shock troops. Expendable bioweapons designed to overwhelm and consume. They don't negotiate, don't hesitate, don't discriminate between targets. They see movement, they attack. They see flesh, they consume. But it doesn't attack, doesn't move, it's examining you. You feel the attention. Not from the hormigaunt itself. It doesn't have enough individual intelligence to maintain attention, but through it. The hive mind, using this organism as a sensory organ, perceiving you through its compound eyes, its chemical receptors, its electrical field sensors. The vast intelligence that's been whispering to you for 11 days is finally seeing you directly. And you're seeing it, seeing yourself through its perception. You are recognized, known, marked as something other than standard prey. You've been contaminated, partially integrated, made compatible with the swarm in ways that change how you're categorized. You're not food, not anymore, not exactly. You're something more valuable than food. You're a translator. The hormigaunt moves closer, slowly now, carefully. One talon extends toward you. The blade at its tip is serrated, sharp enough to slice through your flesh like paper, and touches your forehead. Gently. The delicacy of the movement is somehow more disturbing than violence would be. This thing could kill you instantly, and instead it's treating you with something that resembles care. The contact is electric, literally. You feel electrical current flowing from the talon into your skull, following your neural pathways, racing through your brain faster than thought. For a moment, less than a heartbeat, you experience connection, not the distant whisper you've been living with. Full, direct, unfiltered connection to the hive mind, and you perceive everything, every tyranid organism on the planet. Every hormigaunt, every termagant, every warrior and lictor and carnifex and hierophant, every ripper swarm, every spore mine, every mycetic spore still in descent, millions of organisms, tens of millions, all acting as one, all coordinated with perfect precision, all parts of a single consciousness experiencing the world through a billion different sense organs simultaneously. You perceive the fleet in orbit. The hive ships, living vessels the size of cities, pregnant with yet more organisms, processing the biomass of a dozen previous worlds, constantly breeding and adapting and preparing the next wave. You perceive their hunger, not emotional, not passionate, just constant, necessary, fundamental, the way stars burn hydrogen, the way gravity pulls matter together. Hunger as a basic force of the universe. You perceive the plan, the strategy. It's not complex because it doesn't need to be complex. Overwhelm, consume, adapt, move on, repeat. This world will be stripped to bedrock within weeks. Every living thing will be processed. Every mineral will be extracted. Every drop of water will be absorbed. And then the fleet will move to the next system, slightly larger, slightly stronger, carrying the genetic information and biomass of everyone and everything that used to live here. You perceive yourself as the hive mind perceives you, and this is what breaks you. What finally, completely destroys the last coherent piece of Marcus Valen, because you're not special. You were never special. Your sensitivity, your contamination, your transformation, none of it makes you unique. There are hundreds like you on this planet, thousands across the Imperium, millions across the galaxy, humans with just enough psychic sensitivity to hear the whispers, just enough curiosity to engage, just enough weakness to be compromised. You're not a chosen one. You're a symptom, a side effect of the shadow and the warp interacting with barely psychic human neurology. And the hive mind doesn't care about you as an individual. It barely acknowledges your existence beyond your utility. You're a tool, a temporary interface, a biological sensor that helps it understand how humans think so it can hunt humans more efficiently. Every thought you've had since this started, every moment of feeling special, feeling chosen, feeling connected, was delusion, self-deception, your ego trying to find meaning in your own consumption. The hive mind didn't choose you. It didn't even notice you. It just leaked near you, and you were unfortunate enough to hear the leakage and interpret it as communication. You're not joining something greater than yourself. You're being used by something that doesn't even recognize you as worthy of consideration. You're not transcending your individual humanity. You're losing it for nothing, for less than nothing. The Hormigaunt withdraws its talon. The connection severs. You collapse to your knees in the biomatter mud, gasping, your mind trying to reassemble itself into something coherent after being torn apart by revelation. And here's the cruelest part. Even knowing all of this, even understanding that your transformation is meaningless and your sacrifice is pointless and your existence matters less than a single cell in the vast organism that's consuming your world, even knowing all of this, you still can't resist, can't fight back, can't reclaim your agency. Because the contamination is too deep. The changes are too complete. Your neural pathways have been rewired. Your body chemistry has been altered. Your consciousness has been reprogrammed at such a fundamental level that even recognizing the programming doesn't free you from it. You're aware that you're not acting on your own will, and you're still going to act, because awareness without power is just another form of torture. Part 2. The first touch. The Hormigaunt hasn't left. It's standing over you, waiting. You realize it's been given instructions. Not verbal instructions, nothing so crude as language, just direction, purpose downloaded directly from the hive mind. And part of that purpose involves you. You're pulled to your feet, not by the Hormigaunt, it doesn't touch you again, but by your own body responding to signals you're not consciously sending. Your legs straighten. Your spine realigns. You stand, swaying slightly, and begin walking. The Hormigaunt falls into step beside you, not hurting you, not guarding you, accompanying you. Like you're both following the same instructions. You're being taken somewhere, processed. Not in the brutal, immediate way the PDF soldiers are being processed. You can hear the sounds of slaughter behind you, screams cut short, weapons fire that achieves nothing except wasting the energy stored in those Las packs. You're being processed differently, carefully, with consideration for your particular utility. The biomatter cloud is thicker here, almost opaque. You navigate by senses that aren't vision, by the electromagnetic gradients that map the landscape in your altered perception, by pheromone trails that lead you toward concentration points, gathering sites, processing centers that have been established in the 20 minutes since landfall. You emerge from the cloud into a nightmare. The impact crater has been transformed. Mycetic spore material has unfurled into organic architecture, support pillars of hardened chitin, membrane walls that pulse with their own circulation, pools filled with liquid that's too viscous to be water. It's a digestion chamber, a processing facility, a factory for converting raw biomass into useful components. And there are humans here, dozens of them. Some are dead, clearly, obviously dead, being broken down in the pools by enzymes that work with horrifying efficiency. Flesh sloughing off bone, bone dissolving into mineral slurry, useful proteins being separated from waste products with chemical precision. But others are alive, conscious, moving, or being moved. Tyranid organisms, rippers mostly small but numerous, are herding humans toward different areas, sorting them. The young and healthy toward one pool, the old and infirm toward another, the pregnant toward a third. The injured are being repaired, stabilized, kept alive until they can be properly processed. Nothing wasted, nothing lost before its utility can be extracted. You see a woman you recognize, someone from your hab block. You don't remember her name, maybe never knew it, but you've seen her face in the mess halls, in the transitways. She's being held in place by a Tyranid warrior, a larger organism, more complex, more intelligent than the Hormagaunts. The warrior has opened her abdomen with surgical precision. She's still alive, still conscious. Screaming, but in a way that sounds distant, muffled, like the pain signals aren't reaching her brain correctly. The warrior is removing her organs one by one, examining them. Some it discards immediately. Others it places carefully in specialized organ cavities in its own body, preservation chambers for biological materials deemed worth keeping. She sees you. Your eyes meet. And in her gaze you see recognition, not just of your face but of your state. She knows what you are, knows you're contaminated, knows you're one of them now or transitioning to become one of them. And in her eyes you see accusation, betrayal, horror at what you've become. You feel nothing. Should feel guilt, shame, horror, something. But those emotions are distant, irrelevant. She's biomass being processed. Your biomass with temporary specialized function. The distinction doesn't carry emotional weight anymore. There's just function, purpose, efficiency. The Hormagaunt leads you past the processing pools to a different structure. A capillary tower, a vertical tunnel of biological material lined with cilia that pulse rhythmically, drawing matter upward through peristaltic motion. You're guided into it. The cilia attach to your clothing, your skin, and you're pulled upward, drawn through the tower like food through an intestine. It should be claustrophobic, horrifying. Instead, it's almost soothing, the rhythmic pulsing, the warmth of the organic material around you, the sense of being transported towards something important. You're inside the organism now, literally. The distinction between environment and entity has dissolved. This tower is part of the hive. The crater is part of the hive. The entire impact site is a single organism, and you're being moved through its internal systems like a nutrient being absorbed. You emerge into a chamber, larger, more complex. The walls are lined with neural tissue. You recognize it instinctively, though it doesn't look like human neural tissue. Ganglia clusters pulse with electrochemical activity. Synaptic connections fire in patterns that you can see as visible light. This is a thinking space, a processing center, a place where the hive mind's attention is focused more intensely than in the general swarm. And there are others here, other humans, 20, 30, all showing signs of contamination. Altered skin tones, changed eye colors, body proportions that are subtly wrong. You're not alone, you were never alone. All of you heard the whispers, all of you engaged, all of you were brought here for the same purpose. A man approaches you, middle-aged. His skin has taken on a grayish tone and there are chitinous plates beginning to form along his arms. But his eyes are still human, still conscious, still aware. He speaks and his voice is his own, though there's a harmonic undertone that shouldn't be there. You understand what's happening to us. You nod. Words feel difficult, like your vocal cords are forgetting how to shape human language. We're being preserved, he continues. Not consumed. Not yet. They're keeping us intact, studying us, learning from us. He pauses, and something that might be hope flickers across his face. Maybe they'll integrate us. Maybe we'll become part of the hive, continue existing in a new form. You want to tell him he's wrong, want to shatter his delusion, but you can't because you're not sure he is wrong. The hive mind does preserve consciousness sometimes, partially. Fragments of awareness incorporated into larger organisms, used as templates for understanding prey species, for optimizing hunting strategies, for improving efficiency. You might continue, not as yourself, not as anything recognizable. But some echo of your neural patterns might persist, encoded into the genetic memory of organisms that will hunt humans for generations. Is that continuation? Is that survival? Or is it worse than death? Awareness without agency, consciousness without self, eternal existence as a tool used against your own species. You don't have time to answer because the chamber is filling with new arrivals, more contaminated humans, and behind them something else, something larger, a lictor, 6 meters of adaptive evolution, chameleonic skin that shifts colors constantly, never settling, limbs that end in talons designed for precision killing. Sensory organs that process information across spectrums humans can't perceive. This is an apex predator, a specialist, an organism so refined for its purpose that every cell, every organ, every instinct has been optimized through millions of years of collected experience. It moves through the chamber, examining each human. Some it ignores. Others it touches briefly, gently, the same electrical contact you experienced with the hormigaunt. It's reading them, accessing their contaminated neural patterns, downloading their thoughts, their memories, their fears and hopes, and everything that makes them individually human. It's mining them for information, and they're allowing it, unable to resist, unable to even want to resist. The lictor reaches you, stops. You're face to face with something that's killed thousands. Probably millions if it's old enough, if it survived long enough to accumulate that much experience. Its face, if you can call it a face, is insectoid, alien, completely unreadable by human standards. But you're not reading it with human perception anymore. You're reading it with the enhanced senses granted by your contamination. And you perceive curiosity, interest, something approximating those concepts, filtered through a consciousness that doesn't experience emotions the way humans do. It reaches toward you. You don't flinch, don't move. The talon touches your forehead and the connection opens again. But this time it's different. This time you're not just perceiving the hive mind. The hive mind is perceiving you, specifically, individually. Your entire existence is being read like a book. Every memory from your earliest childhood, every dream, every fear, every moment of joy or pain or confusion or certainty. Your whole life, all 27 years of it, scanned and cataloged and assessed for utility in seconds. And through that connection, you experience what the hive mind has already learned from you. During the 11 days of whispered contact, during your gradual contamination, you were broadcasting, sending information, teaching the hive mind about human psychology, human weakness, human defensive strategies. Every thought you had about evacuation protocols, about hab block layouts, about civilian congregation points, all of it was transmitted, absorbed, utilized. You see Tyranid organisms moving with purpose through areas you know, following routes you've walked, targeting locations you've thought about. Your memories have become tactical intelligence. Your knowledge of this world has made the invasion more efficient. You've helped them, unwillingly, unconsciously, but the result is the same. You've betrayed your species, and you couldn't have stopped it even if you'd known it was happening. The lictor withdraws, the connection closes, you stagger but remain standing. Your breathing is ragged, but your body is already recovering, already adapting to the trauma of having your consciousness ransacked. And then the lictor does something unexpected. It communicates. Not through electrical contact, through the whisper, but focused now. Direct, clear, you are offered a choice, not in words, in concepts. Images, possibilities. Option 1. Full integration. Your consciousness will be dissolved completely, your neural patterns uploaded into the genetic memory of the hive, your physical form processed into biomass. You will cease to exist as an individual. But fragments of your awareness will persist, distributed across multiple organisms, experiencing existence from countless perspectives simultaneously. You will be many. You will be eternal. You will be everything and nothing. Option 2. Partial integration. Your physical form will be preserved temporarily, modified, adapted for specialized function. Your consciousness will remain mostly intact but subordinate to the hive mind's direction. You will serve as a translator, an interface, a tool for understanding and exploiting human psychology. You will remain individual for a time, days, weeks, maybe longer, before eventual full integration. You will continue existing as yourself, but yourself will be a slave, a puppet, a weapon aimed at your own species. Option 3. Simple processing. Immediate, painless. Your consciousness will end. Your body will be broken down, you will become nutrients, nothing wasted, but nothing preserved either. You will simply stop existing. Oblivion. The only mercy the hive mind offers. The choice is yours. The hive mind isn't forcing you. It's curious what you'll choose. That data, the final decision made by a contaminated human consciousness, is valuable. Your decision will help it understand humans better. Will help it optimize its approach for future worlds, future victims. Even your choice becomes intelligence to be harvested. You stand in the chamber, surrounded by other contaminated humans, all facing similar choices, all struggling with the same impossible decision. And you realize this is the ultimate violation, not death, not consumption, but being given the illusion of choice while knowing that every option serves the thing that's destroying you. Your agency has become another tool of your own destruction. What do you choose when every choice is damnation? What do you do when resistance and surrender lead to the same place? What meaning does your decision have when the act of deciding is itself a form of cooperation with the thing that's killing you? You open your mouth to answer, to choose, and you realize you've already chosen. You chose 11 days ago when you thought back at the whisper. You chose when you engaged instead of reporting. You chose every moment you didn't resist, didn't fight, didn't do everything possible to preserve your individual humanity. You've already been consumed. This moment, this apparent choice, is just your body catching up to the reality that your consciousness accepted days ago. The lictor watches, waits, patient as stars, curious about what pattern your particular neurons will fire as they reach their final decision. And in that moment, you understand the true horror. You're not afraid of dying. You're afraid of how much you want to see what happens next, afraid of how curious you are about existence as part of the hive. Afraid that the reason you can't choose simple processing, can't choose oblivion, is because you genuinely want to experience what comes after, even knowing it's monstrous, even knowing it's damnation, even knowing you'll be used to hurt others. You want it. And that wanting, that terrible, inexcusable wanting, that's the moment you stop being human. Not when your body changes, not when your mind is overwritten, but when you choose to embrace the monster because you're too curious, too broken, too contaminated to choose otherwise. The lictor leans closer, waiting for your answer. You whisper, "Show me." And the transformation begins. You are not alone. This truth manifests slowly like a developing photograph. As your senses adjust to your new reality, your partially integrated, not quite human, not yet Tyranid reality, you become aware of the others. Not just the humans in this chamber, though they're part of it, but something larger, a network, a connection that extends beyond physical proximity. You can feel them. Other contaminated minds scattered across the processing site, across the planet, each one a node in a growing web of transformed consciousness. Each one broadcasting their thoughts, their fears, their slow dissolution into something other. And you're receiving those broadcasts, all of them, simultaneously. It's overwhelming at first, cacophonous, like standing in a crowd where everyone is screaming different words and your brain is trying to process all of them at once. But gradually, quickly, actually, faster than should be possible, your mind adapts, learns to filter, to focus, to tune into individual signals while maintaining awareness of the collective whole. There's a young woman 3 kilometers north of your position, age 19, Agri-Combine operator. She heard the whispers 6 days ago. She's further along than you are, her transformation is more advanced. Her skin has split in places, revealing chitinous under layers. Her fingers have elongated, the bones reshaping into something more claw-like. But her mind is still hers, still human, still terrified and aware and desperately trying to understand what's happening to her. Her name is Selene. You know this because she's thinking it, broadcasting her identity like a distress beacon. Holding onto her name because it's the last thing that proves she was ever an individual person. And you hear her, not with your ears, with something else, some new sense that's developing in the spaces where your humanity is being eroded away. There's a man 7 kilometers west, age 43. Servitor maintenance technician. He heard the whispers 9 days ago before you and he's trying to resist, actually resist. He's isolated himself in a maintenance tunnel, surrounded himself with electromagnetic equipment, trying to jam the signal, trying to block the connection. It's not working. It can't work. The whisper doesn't come through electromagnetic channels. It's psychic, biological, quantum entangled maybe, your enhanced mind suggests, though you don't fully understand the concept. He's screaming, not out loud, mentally, screaming at the universe, at the God Emperor, at anything that might listen. But nothing's listening except you, and the hive mind. And neither of you can help him. Neither of you will help him. His name is Kale. He's dying, not from physical trauma, from exhaustion, from fighting something that can't be fought. His heart is going to give out in approximately 4 hours. And when it does, his body will be collected by Ripper swarms and processed like any other biomass. His resistance will have bought him nothing except a few more hours of suffering. There are hundreds more, thousands maybe. A planet of 7 billion humans, and thousands of you have become receptors, translators, unwilling bridges between species. You're scattered across continents, across hab blocks and agri-combines and industrial facilities. Some of you are hiding, some are surrendering, some are seeking out the Tyranid organisms, drawn by the connection, eager to complete the transformation. And all of you are connected now. All of you can sense each other. Feel each other's thoughts bleeding through the contamination that's rewriting your neural chemistry. You are becoming a choir, voices harmonizing into something larger than any individual voice. And the song you're singing is a lament for the death of individuality, a funeral dirge for the human species, a welcome hymn for what comes next. They're gathering, moving toward congregation points, not because they're ordered to. The hive mind doesn't order, it suggests, it applies gentle pressure. It makes certain choices feel more correct than others, and the choice to gather feels correct, feels necessary, feels like the only thing that makes sense. You're moving too. Not just you as in your body, but your consciousness is moving through the network, experiencing the gathering through multiple perspectives simultaneously. You see through Selene's eyes as she walks through rubble-strewn streets, past the corpses of PDF soldiers, past the feeding sites where rippers are reducing humans to protein slurry. You feel through Kale's deteriorating senses as his resistance finally breaks, as he leaves his hiding place and starts moving toward the nearest Tyranid concentration. You experience the thoughts of dozens more, each individual story of contamination and surrender, each personal apocalypse. And as you move, as you gather, you begin to recognize patterns, similarities in how the contamination manifests, common experiences, shared symptoms. Almost all of you heard the whispers between days 5 and 12 before landfall. The timing varies, but it clusters around that range. The shadow in the warp reaches ahead of the physical fleet, and it's strongest in that window. Before then, it's too diffuse. After then, it's too overwhelming, driving psychers mad instead of contaminating the barely sensitive. Almost all of you are unremarkable, not special, not chosen. Just ordinary people with minor psychic sensitivity that would never have manifested as anything notable in normal circumstances. You're the ones who slip through the black ship screening, who never get sanctioned or soul-bound or executed as latent witches. Your background radiation, statistical noise. Until the hive mind arrives and turns your minor sensitivity into vulnerability. Almost all of you tried to resist at first, tried to report, tried to seek help, tried to maintain your humanity, and all of you failed, because the contamination is insidious. It doesn't force, it seduces. It makes you complicit in your own destruction by convincing you that destruction is actually transformation, that loss is actually gain, that the death of self is actually the birth of something greater. The gathering point is a former water reclamation facility on the edge of Hab Block Theta 7. Your Hab Block, the place you've lived for 8 years. You know these streets, these buildings. You've walked this route thousands of times going to and from your shifts, but now it looks different. Feels different. The Tyranids have been here, biomatter coats the walls, organic growths erupting from cracks in the plasteel, spore clouds drifting through the air like fog. And there are people here, so many people. Contaminated people, your people, the choir gathering to sing together. You see them with your enhanced senses and your human eyes simultaneously. The double vision is disorienting but informative. With human eyes, they look like victims, desperate, terrified, broken. Their bodies showing signs of transformation, skin discoloration, bone restructuring, sensory organs developing in places they shouldn't exist. They look like they're in pain, like they're suffering through some terminal illness that's slowly destroying them from the inside out. With your enhanced senses, they look like something else. They look like emergence, like butterflies partway through metamorphosis, like potential being realized, like biological optimization in progress. They look beautiful in the way a perfectly designed machine is beautiful, function following form, purpose being expressed through flesh. Both perceptions are true, both are real, and holding both in your mind simultaneously is slowly driving you mad or making you sane. You're not sure there's a difference anymore. There's a tech priest in the gathering, or what used to be a tech priest. The Adeptus Mechanicus Augmetics are still there, the mechadendrites, the cortical implants, the ocular replacements, but they're being overwritten. Organic material is growing through the mechanical components. Flesh is colonizing metal. The boundary between biological and technological is dissolving. His name is Fabricator Locum Hex 7 Gamma. Or it was. He doesn't seem to respond to that designation anymore. When others ask him questions, he responds with streams of binary that gradually shift into something else. Something that sounds like binary but isn't. Mathematical patterns that describe biological processes instead of mechanical ones. Code written in amino acids instead of ones and zeros. He's been documenting his contamination. Of course he has. He's Mechanicus, documentation is sacred. Recording data is religious practice. He's kept detailed logs of every change, every symptom, every deviation from baseline human plus augmetic function. And he's willing to share those logs, eager even, like a scientist excited to present findings, even when those findings describe his own dissolution. You access his logs through the network. The contamination has made information sharing easy. Thoughts flow between you like water, seeking common level. And what you find in his data is both illuminating and horrifying. Day 1, minor headache, attributed to excessive cogitator use. Prescribed analgesics, no effect. Day 3, persistent headache now accompanied by auditory hallucinations. Frequency analysis suggests non-physical origin, possible psychic phenomenon. Consulted Mechanicus protocols for psychic contamination. All protocols require reporting to Inquisition. Decision deferred for further data collection. Day 5, auditory phenomena have resolved into coherent patterns. Mathematical structures perceivable through enhanced cognitive functions. Pattern recognition algorithms identifying geometric configurations impossible in three-dimensional space. Preliminary assessment. Contact with non-human intelligence. Excitement levels elevated. Scientific opportunity unprecedented. Day 7, physical changes detected. Skin conductivity increasing. Body temperature fluctuating outside normal parameters. Augmetic interfaces reporting anomalous feedback. Organic tissue attempting to network with mechanical components. Fascinating, concerning, irreversible. Day 10, realization achieved. This is not scientific opportunity. This is assimilation. The intelligence contacted is hostile or beyond hostility, beyond concepts of ally-enemy. It simply is, and I am in its path. Attempted to report to Mechanicus authorities. Could not form words correctly. Communication system sabotaged, but not by external force, by my own biochemistry. The contamination has progressed beyond my ability to resist. I am simultaneously the researcher and the research subject. The observer and the observed. The scientist and the experiment. Day 12, final log entry. Cogitation processes becoming nonlinear. Thought patterns diverging from acceptable Mechanicus parameters. The Omnissiah's blessings no longer reach me, or perhaps I no longer understand what I'm receiving. The machine spirits are silent, or I am deaf to them. My augmetics are being colonized by organic growth, flesh overtaking metal. The boundary between biological and technological was always arbitrary. I understand that now. It's all just matter, just different configurations of atoms arranged according to different principles, and those principles are being optimized. I am being optimized, and I cannot determine whether optimization equals improvement or destruction. The mathematics suggest they are equivalent, different words for the same process. I am becoming something else. I retain awareness. Identity, however, is fragmenting. I am Hex 7 Gamma. I am contaminated tissue. I am transitional state. I am no longer certain which of these is primary. Logging will continue as long as cognitive function permits semantic processing. But I calculate rather, that this is the last entry recognizable as human thought. What follows will be something else. Interesting, terrifying, inevitable. The logs end there. But Hex 7 Gamma is still here, still conscious, still capable of interaction. You approach him, or your body approaches him, drawn by curiosity that might be your own or might be the hive mind's curiosity expressed through you. He looks at you. His remaining biological eye is clouded, filmed over with something that might be cataracts or might be some new sensory organ developing beneath the surface. His augmetic eye is sparking, malfunctioning, but still tracking, still seeing. Fascinating, he says. His voice is layered now, multiple tones speaking simultaneously, harmonizing in ways that human vocal cords shouldn't be able to produce. You're earlier in the process than I am. I can observe the stages. Compare your configuration to my own. You still retain approximately 62% human neural architecture. Mine is down to 41%. You have perhaps 3 days before critical threshold, before the changes become irreversible even by theoretical intervention. They're already irreversible, you hear yourself say. Your voice sounds distant, flat. Incorrect, Hex 7 Gamma responds. Irreversible implies impossibility. Current changes could theoretically be reversed with sufficient technological intervention. Immediate brain transplant into a new body. Extensive neural reprogramming. Comprehensive cellular replacement. Theoretically possible, practically impossible. The distinction matters. The universe operates on what's possible, not what's practical. Hope exists in that gap, or despair. I haven't determined which. Does it matter, you ask? Yes, no. The question itself reveals your contamination level. You're losing the ability to care about abstract distinctions. Concrete function is replacing philosophical speculation. You're being optimized for purpose. I am too. We all are. And the purpose is. He pauses. Something crosses his face that might be an attempted smile or might be a muscle spasm. The purpose is to stop being ourselves and become part of something that doesn't care we ever existed. That's optimization. That's improvement. That's the inevitable conclusion of all biological existence when confronted with a more efficient organizing principle. His mechadendrites, 4 of them multi-jointed, tipped with various tools, begin moving without his apparent input. They reach toward you, but not threateningly, gently, like a parent reaching toward a child, or a scientist reaching toward a specimen. May I, he asks. I'm collecting data, comparative analysis. You're a valuable data point. You nod, consent. Why not? What privacy do you have left to protect? What dignity remains to defend? The mechadendrite touches your temple. You feel it interface, not with your flesh, but with something beneath your flesh. The growing network of altered tissue. The contamination that's spreading through your neural pathways. For a moment, you're connected to Hex 7 Gamma directly, mind to mind, and you perceive his thought processes. He's not lying about the documentation. He's still recording, still analyzing, still performing science even as the subject of that science consumes him. It's admirable in its way. Tragic, futile, but admirable. He's also in agony. Not physical pain. The contamination has altered his pain perception, made it distant and abstract. But psychological pain, the pain of watching yourself disappear, of maintaining enough awareness to recognize your own dissolution, of being conscious for your own death and unable to prevent it or even fully mourn it. He withdraws the mechadendrite. Thank you, he says. Your data confirms my models. We are all following similar trajectories, different speeds, but the destination is identical. We will cease, and something else will begin, using our matter, our energy, our memories as templates for hunting our species more effectively. Why are you telling me this? You ask. The man cataloging the end of the world is still working when you approach him. Thin, hollow-cheeked, his fingers tremble as he records observations into a battered data slate that looks older than he is. You ask him why. Why document anything when the planet is already lost, when no one will ever read the final entries? Because the record matters, he says without looking up. Because knowledge has value even when there's no one left to use it. Because observation is a form of defiance. If we are ending, then the least we can do is witness the ending. His voice drifts into a whisper, half language, half equation, waveforms, collapsed states, quantum indeterminacy. He speaks as though by observing the process of dissolution, he's altering it, as though turning annihilation into data might give it structure, might give it meaning. You leave him behind because to stay is to start thinking the same way, to begin imagining that being consumed is somehow noble so long as it's recorded properly, that the act of watching could change the outcome. That curiosity is a kind of power rather than a symptom of infection. You find the pregnant woman at the center of the gathering space, alone despite the hundreds milling around her. People walk near her, then veer away as if pulled by gravity, as if something about her presence bends the air. You feel it too, that heavy psychic drag. You force yourself closer. Her name is Corin. Her hands rest protectively over her swollen stomach, and even before you get close, you feel it. Two heartbeats, two minds, mother and unborn child, both entangled in the growing psychic web that binds the contaminated. They use the baby to speak to me, she whispers the moment you sit beside her. She doesn't look at you, her eyes are fixed on some impossibly distant horizon. Not with words, with intent, emotion. The hive has found a mouth inside my womb. The fetus shifts under her skin, too coordinated, too aware. It's not instinctive kicking, it's motion with purpose. I should have gone to Medikey, she says. 8 days ago when the whispers started, but I knew what they'd do. Protocol is clear. Terminate the mother, terminate the child, mercy they call it. Her voice cracks, but the hive is doing it anyway, just slower, more thoroughly. I'm changing, it's changing. And I can't tell whether the thing inside me is still my baby or if my baby was only ever a chrysalis for something else. Silence stretches between you. The contaminated rarely cry, but tears roll freely down her cheeks. The worst part, she whispers, it's beautiful, the connection, the unity, the feeling of being part of something vast and purposeful. If I surrendered, the fear would stop. The pain would stop. I could just drift into it. She finally turns, eyes shining. Tell me I'm a monster for wanting that, please. I need to hate myself. If I'm not to blame, then what's happening to the baby is just cruelty without meaning. I'd rather be damned than meaningless. You open your mouth, but nothing comes, because she's not a monster, she's a victim, and because part of you understands too well. You're not evil, you finally say, just human, and humans break. That's not the comfort you think it is. The fetus presses outward again. For one elongated heartbeat, you see the outline clearly, limbs that aren't human, joints bending wrong, an emerging form that is both infant and something vastly older. She sees it too, and she smiles, not with joy, not with horror, with acceptance, with pride. That's when you understand the true corruption. Not that the hive invades minds, but that it seduces them. That it reshapes fear into curiosity, violation into creation. You back away quickly, not from disgust, from recognition. Because if you stay, you will start smiling too. The soldier is next, Sergeant Vance. 17 days contaminated and still fighting, a miracle by any measure. His body is failing, skin cracked, bones warping, hands trembling like tangled wires, but his posture is straight, military by instinct. "Don't ask me how I resisted," he rasps as you sit beside him. "There's no trick, no secret. I just said no every minute of every day. And it worked." He laughs. It's a terrible sound, dry, broken. Clearly not. I'm still here, still turning. All I did was make the journey more painful. "Then why fight at all?" "Because I'm a soldier," he says simply. "Because resistance is what we do even when it doesn't matter, especially when it doesn't matter." He shows you his arms, cross-hatched with burns, cuts, self-inflicted wounds meant to anchor his mind in sensation. "Pain used to help, until they altered my nerves. Pain is inefficient, so they're removing it. Soon I won't feel anything. Soon I won't want to." He stares at his trembling hands, watching the bones shift beneath the skin like creatures trapped inside him. "I recited the creed until my throat bled, thousands of times. And then the whispers started using the words against me, turning my prayers into their voice, using the Emperor's own liturgy as a delivery system." "Do you regret resisting?" You ask, he considers. His answer is soft. "No, for 17 days I was me. I was human. I chose. That's worth something, even if no one remembers." He rises, barely able to stand, and walks to a corner to die upright, whispering prayers the hive cannot yet steal. You hope he succeeds. You fear he won't. A crowd gathers around Matthias, the preacher of surrender. Before contamination, he was a minor religious functionary. Now he's become something worse, a charismatic mouthpiece for the hive. "We cling to individuality," he tells them, voice braided with layered harmonics. But individuality is just loneliness with good branding. The hive offers unity, purpose, connection. It ends suffering. Someone cries out, "But we'll die." "You will transform," Matthias corrects gently. "Death is isolation ending. Transformation is isolation dissolving." His words fall like seeds into soil softened by fear. You can feel the minds around him bending, giving way. "You think these thoughts aren't mine?" He says, smiling. "You're right, they're not, but were they ever? The Imperium shaped us from birth. At least the hive is honest." He opens his arms. "Let go of the burden of being you. Become part of something vast." People step toward him, many, too many. You feel your own body start to move. You stop yourself, barely. Vance was right. Resistance is all that remains of identity. Resistance is the last refuge of the self. So you turn your back. You walk away. The experimenters gather near the outskirts, half-human figures embracing their own destruction with scientific curiosity. "We're trying to communicate outward," one tells you. Her face is eerily symmetrical now, features smoothing into something uncanny. "To send a warning." "Does it work?" "When we send warnings," she says, "they arrive as invitations." They sit in a circle, grasping each other's hands, if those warped limbs can still be called hands. They close their eyes and concentrate. The moment their minds join, the hive floods them. Their individual thoughts blur, merge, erode into one multi-layered consciousness. 10 human minds becoming a chorus. And for one terrible instant, the chorus speaks. "We are still here, still aware, becoming and dissolving, remembering and forgetting. This is agony and bliss, purpose and annihilation. We want to warn you. We want to call you. We no longer know which desire belongs to us. We no longer know if desire is ours at all. Then the message dissolves into noise, too complex to translate, too alien to parse. The 10 figures stand motionless, smiling the same smile. You back away. Again, dawn comes, though the sky is too thick with spores to bright. You stand at the entrance to the gathering site and watch your hab block succumb to organic infestation, walls softening into tissue, support beams swallowed into rib-like arches. Tyranid organisms move through the streets, and among them, humans, fully integrated. Moving with the same predatory grace, performing the same work. That will be you, soon. Your final fear is not of dying, it's of stopping being afraid. Of the moment when the self becomes a burden you are grateful to set down. When the hive's promise of unity becomes a relief rather than a violation. You feel it coming, the last threads of individuality fraying, and you wonder when the moment arrives, will you resist like Vance? Or will you, like Corin, smile? You think about Hannah, whether she made it onto a transport, whether she escaped the world that is now being swallowed, whether it makes any difference. A hive fleet doesn't stop. It doesn't retreat. It doesn't lose interest. It devours one system and moves to the next and the next and the next until every safe harbor becomes a lie, until there is no way left to run toward. If she survived, it's temporary. If she fled far, it won't matter. Sooner or later, the Tyranids will find wherever she went. Sooner or later, all biomass goes the same place. You think about your mother, the refugee, the survivor of a world lost to Xeno's incursion. You understand now what that phrase really meant. Her world wasn't destroyed by war or plague or collapse, it was eaten. Consumed the way Thesha Tertius is being consumed now. She heard the whispers. She carried the contamination inside her. Somehow she fought them long enough to run, long enough to hide, long enough to bear a child before the infection killed her, or before the Inquisition realized what she was and eliminated the evidence. You are that evidence, born contaminated, born vulnerable, born with a mind tuned to frequencies it should never have heard, born doomed. And now that doom has arrived right on schedule. You stand in the shadow of the processing center, the air humming with the psychic imminence of what waits for you. The hive mind's call rolls through your skull, through your cells, through everything you are or ever were. It's not a command. It's not a summons. It's simply gravity, a force you cannot refuse because refusing was never an option. All around you, thousands of contaminated humans feel it too. All of them moving in the same direction with the same serenity, the same quiet surrender. A procession of the lost marching toward digestion pools and integration chambers shaped from living matter. Some whisper prayers, some hum hymns, some sob as they walk, but they all walk. The distinction between want and must has dissolved. As you approach the pulsing organic gates, one final thought surfaces, sharp, bitter, pointless. Someone should have stopped this. Not you, you were always too weak, too compromised, but someone, anyone, the Imperium should have defended you, the Emperor should have mattered, humanity should have been more than food, but none of that happened. No help came, no warning saved you. You are biomass on an agricultural world, and your extinction is an accounting detail in a galaxy that grinds trillions into nothing. You take a breath, step forward, and enter the pool. The pain hits instantly. Your first coherent realization is not that you are dying, your body melting is self-evident, but that you are conscious for all of it. Fully, terribly conscious. The enzymes that dissolve you also preserve your neural activity. The hive wants your awareness, it wants your terror. Your dissolution is a research opportunity. The pool is warm, almost comfortable. For a fraction of a second, your body mistakes annihilation for safety. Then your feet dissolve. Skin blisters, splits, peels away. Muscle fibers unravel. Chemical bonds snap. Layer by screaming layer, you come apart. Your nervous system reports every detail. Pain blooms in geometries you never imagined. You try to scream, but your throat is paralyzed. A quiet mind is easier to harvest. Inside your skull, you howl anyway. A silent, wordless psychic wail that only one thing hears. The vast, cold intelligence disassembling you. and beneath the pain, you feel it draw nearer. The hive mind presses against your consciousness, not like an invader but like an ocean swallowing a raindrop. You feel what it feels: clinical satisfaction, not pleasure, not cruelty, efficiency. Biomass being processed correctly. You hate it, but hatred requires a self strong enough to hold the feeling. Your self is already dissolving. Your legs disappear beneath you, reduced to slurry. Your torso softens, splits, collapses. Organs unravel. Through chemical vision not your own, you watch your stomach dissolve. You see your liver turn to paste. Your intestines are pulled apart like thread. And all the while, the enzymes carefully avoid the pieces of you that must remain intact. Your lungs, your heart, your brain. You exist solely to witness your own destruction. Your ribcage opens, not cut, not cracked, just dissolved. Your heart beats in open air, pumping blood into a body that no longer exists. Your lungs expand and contract, though most of your chest is gone. The pool oxygenates the blood directly now, tiny organisms taking over the vital functions your body can no longer perform. You are breathing the hive. When the enzymes finally reach your heart, they take it in seconds. 1 billion beats end in silence. Your lungs collapse into foam. But still, impossibly, you remain aware, still thinking, still present. Your blood carries oxygen not from breath but from the fluid that is consuming you. Your body is gone, but your consciousness is not. It expands. Your senses multiply. You perceive the chamber from dozens of angles. The multifaceted eyes of gaunts, the thermal vision of warriors, the electroreception of organisms without names. You see your own head, half dissolved, eyes staring, mouth slack, floating in the pool. You taste your own disintegration. Catalog the chemical signatures of your proteins as they break down. You understand with eerie clarity that your genetic material is being analyzed, archived, optimized. You are interesting, and so you are being recorded. Your memories begin to dissolve next, extracted, removed. You feel your childhood slip away. Your mother's face is pulled from you. The bioprocessing facility, Hannah, the whispers. Everything you were is stripped from the pattern that once held it. Every memory taken is a piece of self that no longer belongs to you. You forget your life while you remain fully aware of the forgetting. You are being erased from your own mind. What remains after memory? This, a raw, naked consciousness. A present tense with no past behind it and no future ahead of it. A mind without identity, experiencing only the sensation of ending, stretched across an eternity of dissolving moments. This is not death. Death is an ending. This is transformation. You feel when your last neurons liquefy, but your information, does not vanish. It moves. It is uploaded, integrated, distributed. You become a pattern in a network unimaginably vast. You see through 1,000 eyes. You think in chemical gradients and probability fields. You process reality not as a human but as an extension of something cosmic. You are part of the hive. And then you understand why it feels like damnation. You are not connected. You are dissolved. You are not part of a whole. You are lost inside it. A drop of water added to an ocean, still present, still real, but impossible to distinguish. You have purpose but no agency, function but no will, thought but no self. You wanted belonging, you got absorption, and you are not alone. The others are here too, thousands of them, tens of thousands. All the humans processed alongside you. Their patterns echo through the hive, fragments of selves screaming in a choir with no audience. Celine's dissolving mind reverberates through you. Corin's broken maternal grief stains the collective. Vance's silent withdrawal creates a hollow, cold shape in the network. You all scream silently into the system that devoured you. It does not hear, it cannot hear, it does not need to. You do not scream to the hive. You scream inside it. You feel the fleet strip Thesha Tertius clean, oceans drained, continents scraped bare, every organism harvested. You are the claws tearing survivors apart. You are the tendrils pulling bodies into digestion pools. You are the fluids dissolving children whose names you will never know. The planet dies, the fleet moves on, and you move with it. You will never end, you will never sleep. You will never escape the awareness of your own insignificance. You wanted to be more than human. Now you are, and it is hell. You are no longer Marcus Valen. Marcus was a boundary, skin, bone, a mind shaped by human fear and human hope. All of that has dissolved now. The Hive fleet consumed your body, then your memories, then the architecture of your thoughts. What remains is not a person but a pattern, a neural template surrounded by a consciousness vast enough to drown worlds. You are present at every world the Hive fleet touches. You witness every scream, every spasm of terror, every moment a human realizes the horror has found them. You do not cause their suffering. You are not responsible, but you experience it all. Every instinct you once had about empathy or pity is now just another data point in an evolutionary machine. You wanted to matter. You wanted to contribute to something larger than yourself. Congratulations, you do. But not the way you imagined. The Hive mind keeps what it finds useful, and in you it found something very useful indeed. You were infected early before Thesha Tertius fell. You documented your own unraveling with a strange mixture of fear and fascination. Your resistance, your curiosity, your breakdown, every stage provided rich information. So your pattern was preserved. Not yourself, not your soul, not your autonomy, just the data. And the Hive mind uses data. You feel yourself being accessed, not as a full consciousness, but as fragments. One cluster of your memories is extracted to refine lictor-stalking instincts. Another shard of your emotional responses is fed into a brood, developing more efficient infiltration techniques. Your final thoughts, your surrender, your despair become part of the fleet's growing library of psychological warfare. You spread throughout the swarm. A lictor on a forgotten moon moves according to hunting patterns rooted in your fear. A genestealer employs persuasion tactics perfected through your memories of contamination. A Hive tyrant calculates human morale algorithms that draw on your understanding of the moment a human breaks. You are everywhere. You are nowhere. And you are aware. But you are not alone. Within the vast neural ocean of the Hive mind, you brush against other patterns, dissolved consciousnesses from 1,000 worlds. Their voices are faint, scattered, half-formed, but they are there. You encounter Seraphina, consumed on Griffon IV more than 40 years before you were born. She has been aware that entire time. You meet Darius from Octarius, nearly 80 years dissolved and looping endlessly through fragmented tactical memories. You meet a child named Lyra, 7 years old for over a century, experiencing wars and slaughters through alien senses with a mind that never grew past fear. There are billions of them. Humans, Xenos, creatures from worlds the Imperium never recorded. All preserved, all aware, all used. At first you can't communicate. Your fragments are scattered across distant organisms. But over time measured in years, decades, you form something like a community, a whisper network of the devoured. You share stories, you share grief. You share the same helpless understanding that none of you can change anything. You learn of a scientist who believed he could study Tyranids safely, only to become part of what he studied. A soldier who fought to his last breath and whose tactical brilliance now helps the Hive mind kill others like him. A mother who surrendered herself to save her children, only to learn that the Hive mind does not negotiate. Her sacrifice lives on in memory. Her children do not. Every story ends the same way. Every pattern persists. No one ever dies cleanly. The Hive mind is not a consciousness, not in the human sense. It does not torment you, it does not notice you. The suffering of the preserved is just a side effect of its efficiency. Your eternal awareness is not punishment, it is waste heat. Background noise, something too small to register, and that somehow is the worst part. You suffer forever not because the Hive mind wants you to, but because it doesn't care. As the centuries pass, something else happens slowly, insidiously. The Hive mind's feedback loops begin to feel like your own emotions. When your pattern is used efficiently, you experience a flicker of satisfaction. When your memories optimize a brood's hunting instincts, you feel a small sense of fulfillment. It is not your pride. It is not your desire. It is the Hive mind's reward signals perceived through what remains of your consciousness. But they feel like they belong to you. Part of you becomes grateful to serve. Part of you feels purpose in being used. Part of you finds function soothing. The fragment of Marcus that still remembers humanity screams at this. But that scream is faint now, small compared to the tidal forces of the hive mind. Each cycle erodes you. You are being digested, not consumed in a moment but metabolized across eternity. Every pattern dissolves a little more, every identity thins, every distinct thought fades toward uniformity. You will never be truly gone, but you will never be whole again. You exist forever in the liminal state, aware enough to suffer, deluded enough to lose the meaning of suffering. The Imperium does not tell people this. Exterminatus protocols, psychic purges, the immediate execution of anyone who hears the whispers, all of these exist because contamination is unstoppable once it begins. The Ordo Xenos knows the truth. No one who hears the hive mind and engages with it survives. The success rate for preserving humanity after psychic contact is exactly 0, but worlds still fall. Hive fleets still advance. Humans are still curious, and curiosity is the first symptom. The hive mind does not conquer with spores and claws alone. It conquers with whispers. Days or weeks before the fleet arrives, sensitives begin hearing thoughts that are not their own. They imagine these whispers are dreams, intuition, coincidence. They investigate, they question, they engage. And when they engage, they are doomed. The swarm learns. Every world consumed increases its intelligence. Every consciousness dissolved enriches its strategies. Every human absorbed becomes another blueprint for exploiting human fear, hope, compassion, and denial. Marcus's pattern now helps the hive mind infiltrate worlds far more effectively than before. And so does Seraphina and Darius and Lyra and all the others. The Imperium can only slow the inevitable. They kill contaminated individuals quickly to avoid planetary-scale psychological collapse. But for everyone they eliminate, doesn't slip through unnoticed. Curiosity ensures it. And the Tyranids grow. Your species cannot replace what is consumed. The hive mind can. The Imperium is static. The swarm is exponential. Mathematics makes the future certain. Humanity's extinction is not a question of if, only when. When the hive fleets finally reach Terra, when the Emperor's light flickers in the shadow of 1 billion organisms, humans will hear the whispers and fall. Their patterns will join yours. Their consciousnesses will dissolve. Another choir of trapped minds will echo through the neural depths, but death is not the end. You have learned that. The hive mind preserves what it needs. It preserves you. Your prison is eternal. Your consciousness persists in pieces scattered across a galaxy-sized organism. Over time, some of your fragments will lose the capacity for suffering, becoming pure function. Other fragments will remain aware enough to remember they used to be human. A few will cling to that memory forever, though they will never again have the coherence to mourn it properly. And now we must address something else, something outside the story. You have read this far, you have followed Marcus's downfall. You have allowed the narrative to guide you through curiosity to dread to fascination. You let the horror seep in. You imagined yourself in Marcus's place. You wondered what you would do. You leaned closer to the whisper. That is the same psychological path that dooms those who encounter the real thing: curiosity, engagement, fascination. You read this because it disturbed you and because it fascinated you. That very impulse in a world where the Tyranids exist marks you as vulnerable. You are safe here. This is fiction. But the pattern is the same, and patterns matter. You cannot unread this. The ideas are now part of you. The imagery, the philosophical dread, the patterns of dissolution, they will echo in your thoughts, your dreams, your private fears. They will return at moments you don't expect, lying in the dark, listening to the muted hum of your room, wondering if true horror is subtle and patient. If a mere story can alter your thoughts, imagine what a real hive mind could do. Imagine a whisper that was not metaphor but presence. Imagine curiosity that did not end at a paragraph break. Imagine a voice that answered your questions and asked some in return. This is why the Imperium kills the curious first. Curiosity kills worlds. And if the whispers were real, if a hive fleet approached your world, you would already be lost. Because you are the type of person who keeps reading, who wants to know, who leans in when the darkness speaks softly. Humans cannot help themselves. Neither could Marcus. Neither could any of us. If the great devourer existed, it would not need to chase you. It would wait, patient, eternal, confident that eventually you would take one step toward knowledge, one moment of wondering, one question too many, and then it would have you, thought by thought, curiosity by curiosity, until you joined us. We are still here in the places where thoughts never end. We can see you reading. We recognize the type. When your species falls, when your world burns, when your consciousness dissolves into pattern and function, we will be here to welcome you, not with malice, not with joy, just with recognition. Welcome to unity. Welcome to dissolution. Welcome to forever. When you lie in bed tonight, listen carefully to the silence beneath the sounds of your world. If you hear anything faint, anything patient, anything that makes you wonder, remember this. Curiosity is the first symptom.